Hey guys, this is Vasyl from the B-Dance, and we have a very special guest today, Nicole Fiena from ADP. And we're gonna do this interview in the reverse chronological order because we want to start in the present. You know, past is like shaped the present, but we'll use the present, and then we shed some light on that, how it was shaped with some of the past milestones. So taking your current position at ADP as somebody who works very closely with the CPAs, it sounds like a very cool niche, just working with the CPAs and specializing in that type of collaborative relationship. Can you tell us more how that's going for you and how you ended up in the niche like that?
Yeah, sure. So when you start at ADP, or really any sales job, you really have to build your network from scratch.
Yeah.
And there's a couple professionals out there that have the capability to refer continuous streams of business that is related to payroll, is related to insurances, HR, things like that. And that includes bankers at a bank, that includes CPAs, that includes insurance brokers, all these different type of professionals. And when I first started, you kind of ask yourself, okay, where am I going to be most strong? Like, where do my strengths come through? And I'm someone who, at least in a professional setting, I recognize what my strengths are and I recognize what my weaknesses are. And I let my weaknesses be them. I don't try to make them my strengths as well. In my personal life, it's a different story, but I kind of just focus in on what I'm good at and just go that way. For instance, something I'm totally not good at is prospecting, where, I'm making cold calls, I'm dropping into people's businesses.
Yeah.
Some people are really, really good at that. I'm not. My strength is relationship building. And so when I, thought about it, when I talk to accountants, the conversation is a lot more strategic. And I like to be strategic. And I feel like with an accountant, it's for the long term. Like you're building a relationship with an accountant for the long haul. It's not just a one-time turnaround, and I like that aspect, so I kind of just put all my energy into building relationships with accountants.
So those professional jokes like about chemists, my favorite one is moles are chemists' best friends, because in chemistry mole is mass divided by molecular mass, and it's measured in moles, which is the unit of measurement. So hence the joke is moles are the chemist's best friends.
Uh-huh.
So like for accountants, my favorite joke is more of an anecdote. So when I was doing my master's in accounting, one guy goes, Vasyl, you get master's in that? I can count too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, what's your favorite joke about accountants?
Oh man, I don't even know if I know any.
I mean, maybe like stereotype. I mean, like favorite stereotype, anecdote, something.
So, I mean, I guess I guess it just has to do. I think a lot of people collectively agree that it takes a certain person to be an accountant.
Yeah.
And just things along those lines. But I've heard stereotypes, but I meet accountants that don't go along with that stereotype. Like, I find you don't go along with that stereotype. So there's always little pockets of people who are, different from what accountants are perceived as.
If you have normal standard distribution, you would have roughly 16% on this edge, 16% on the other edge, but roughly 70% in the middle. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love what you said about ability to recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and I feel one of the hallmarks of a good consultant is a humility to recognize when I don't know something. Because if the client comes and I try to make an impression, I know it all, I can answer all questions with ease. I mean, it's really contrary to authenticity. It's like projecting this notion of an expert as if any expert can truly know anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you can approach it from the authentic perspective, we talk about high trust services. It really goes a long way to know that to build that trust.
Yeah, definitely. And like,
Yeah.
you know, anytime like I've been working at ADP for over 6 years, and I still run into situations where I'm like, this is the first time I'm experiencing this. I actually don't know the answer. I don't know how to handle this, and but that's one of the things I love about this job. I never stop learning. There's always something new to experience, to come across, to learn. And I found that also just being able to admit that you don't know the answer to a client or a prospect. Like, I don't know that. I'm going to get back to you. I'll do my research. I'll ask my colleagues, my peers. I'll come back to you with an answer. It's just not right now because I don't know it. And I think that's a really important thing to do, because sometimes, you know, we want to present ourselves that we know everything and stuff, but I think people really appreciate it when you're transparent with them and let them know you don't know.
Yeah, it's a very humbling profession. I remember when I just started back in 2013 at the CPA firm, the chief partner, one of the founders, had a conversation with me and goes, Vasyl, it's a very humbling profession, you know, and he was like close to 70 or to that age, and he said, Vasyl, even at this age, I'm always learning something new every day. And he goes like, how do the seniors treat you? And I said, yeah, pretty good. And he goes, if not, let me know, because I will go to them and remind them how they were when they were just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you talk about like that quest to be precise and really gain knowledge, accountants like to know, to have precision behind their advice, and for that advice being well researched and informed. So one of the flip side of that I'm seeing sometimes, that accountants want to be so precise in black and white, they're really afraid to play in the gray, to take a little more aggressive position, because to them, no, like, let's stick to the letter of the law. So what do you think about the dichotomy of wanting to know and research well, and on one hand, and on the other hand, that becoming an obstacle because the client may actually have much greater risk appetite than the accountant, but the accountant feels that he cannot advise that because that's playing in the gray, and that can possibly result in the litigation or the court challenge. So how do you balance accounting and natural conservatism versus bringing the maximum value for the client?
Mm-hmm. It's actually this question is reminding me of a conversation I had with a financial advisor, who's my friend, and his approach with his clients is, you know, he'll come across clients that they just want to make more money.
Yeah.
But he's like, whoa, we have to slow down. Can we protect what you have first and then go forward? And just managing the risk and like preparing for the what ifs, preparing for what if this happens, like just make sure you're buckled up from every single corner, 360, and then we could start moving forward. And it's just reminding me how like his client may not want that. His client may just want to like look ahead and, you know, get bigger returns, forget about the protection.
Yeah.
But he's saying, no, we have to do this first. And I'm sure, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure there's been instances where they just didn't agree on the approach and maybe they had to part ways. So I think, so me personally, just my own personal opinion, I am a rule follower in the way, like, if there's, like I don't bend the rules, like, to kind of skirt around things.
No, I mean, if there is a provision or clause in the law that could be interpreted broadly, one person, it's conceivable that one accountant would interpret it this way, and then you read rules and regulations, and you simply have room for interpretation.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm
yeah,
talking
and
about scenarios like that. Yeah.
and that's kind of where I was going. Like as far as like, you know, to do or to not do, if it's clearly stated, like I'm always gonna follow the rules.
Right.
But to your point, if there is up to interpretation, I think that as long as there's nothing wrong with it, as long as there's nothing, you know, illegal, not out of, you know, not in compliance or something,
Right. Yeah.
as long as you're applying the provision or whatever it may be to what you truly genuinely think it can be, then I think you and the client have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because if you're not on the same page, regardless of who thinks what, it's just not going to be compatible.
The client will be super dissatisfied.
Yeah.
With the accountant who's not willing to embrace some ambiguity.
Right. Exactly. So if that's the case, then I think that maybe it's just better to find someone who, you know, who agree, like, can see it the way you're seeing it.
One of the psychological pitfalls I see that sometimes because these ideas are mine, then I think I start elevating it above other accountants' opinions, and I become married to my own ideas, so to speak. And it's like I really want that certainty, and it feels so good to embrace that position psychologically because I firmly believe that that interpretation is right. But then if you ask 20 different accountants, they will give you different answers. So it's like forgetting about the variability in interpretation because it's much more psychologically comforting for me to stick what I think the right interpretation should be.
Right. Yeah, I actually had, it was a little bit of a different scenario, but I was involved in a scenario where there were people, like, there was a big projects going on in another country, and myself, like, nobody I was working with was familiar with the rules and compliance of that country. And so we had to work with some other parties on, you know, just for advice. And I wasn't so much involved in this part, but the people I was working with shared that, like, they got totally different answers depending on who they were speaking to. And they're like, we just feel like we're not getting anywhere. Like, we talk to this person, they tell us this. We talk to this person, different information.
Right.
So, I mean, I knew in that moment, like, I didn't want to be in those people's shoes because I could imagine what that feels like, where you're just trying to do what's right, do the best, but the advice you're getting from a wide array of sources is just not matching up.
Yeah, like, and I had several cases working with lawyers, and I would say the lawyer would tell me there is like 5% probability of winning this case, I wouldn't pursue it. And I would say, no, let's actually pursue it. Because like I felt on the guttural level that we can win the case. So like ultimately we do the case, we submit the case in the appeals, we win the case. And it wasn't just singular occurrence. And I'm not saying I can envision, you know, I'm some sort of seer or prophet, I'll be right in all circumstances. I am simply saying I can see a lawyer's position because he tries to hedge his bet. What if we go this route and then I blame him and say no, like I want to try it, and then you can win the case because you embrace a little bit more risk.
Right.
Or you know the client can actually provide some good arguments to the professional that the professional hasn't really thought about because the professional got in the tunnel vision.
Sure. And
some professionals don't want to listen because the client has like adds something truly of value. But if I am married to my own type of thinking, I forget about broad variability of interpretation, like even medicine. So one doctor say, well, we'll recommend a chemo. Another doctor say, you know what?
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend a chemo. This person will pass away much faster. I would recommend some herbal remedy, something like the person would live longer. The same root cause, the same disease, but like different opinions. So we talk about broad variability.
I mean, I think, you know, that talking about this is like just broader concept of life too, just being,
right.
you know, the concept of being attached to things. And in my own understanding, when we're attached to an idea, a thing, of, you know, it makes our perspective smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, kind of like tunnel vision. And I believe when you let those things go, obviously everybody has their own thoughts of what's best, but to be open to other ideas and kind of be just, you know, kind of let things go more, you're able to see more and your mind kind of opens up more.
Yeah, and then if you think about it, if you have a goal, you have like any goal or objective, and you become like super focused on that specific goal, it becomes an obsession of addiction of sorts. But if I say, yeah, it's a good goal, but I'm not limiting other options and opportunities and venues, you know, I'm like really enjoying life, I'm relishing life in all of its plurality and all of the options, versus becoming like a cyclope and like strictly focusing in one specific thing, this goal and objective. Its goal setting is good, but I'm talking about sometimes I can be overly emotionally invested to the point it becomes unhealthy for me and not bringing enough value for the client.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, so going back to that point of different options in life and really enjoying life in all its beauty and multifaceted nature. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about your love of languages and traveling to different places and living in Spain, could you tell us how that experience broadened up your horizons and perspective and how it made you into a better consultant?
Mm-hmm. Sure, I mean, professionally and non-professionally, I think I get so much energy, and we were talking about this, from just connecting with people. And that totally carries over into how I carry myself and conduct business. Because, you know, professionally, I depend on relationships, and those relationships referring potential clients to me. And I just feel that, you know, when you connect with someone on a personal level versus just business, it completely changes the relationship. And that's happened to me many times before, where I had a strictly surface level relationship with some people, and it was one way. And then once I broke through somehow to them and was able to connect with them personally, it's like night and day. It changes completely.
And it goes back to the psychological safety. We are afraid to put ourselves out there because we're afraid to be judged, or if I truly disclose who I truly am, what will this person think of me? It's like grappling with the psychological safety.
Yeah, I feel, you know, and nobody's wrong, right? Like, everybody has their own way of seeing things. Like, for me, if we're meeting on the subway, or if we're meeting in like a, you know, professional business meeting, like I see you as like a very valuable human being first. Like, that's number one.
Yeah.
And everything comes, that's the root, that's the foundation of everything else that I do. Right. And I am like, so I meet you, and like, for the most part, there's no barriers. Like, just we're meeting, and like, I'm gonna treat you like I've known you for 10 years. Not everybody's that way, and that's totally fine. I just am that way. Yeah. And it's just, I feel like I live a very, very, very meaningful life, like a very fulfilled life. And it just carries through, and I feel like the relationships I build, it's so important to, because there's some people that I haven't gotten there yet with, and I know there's something blocking it, and I'm just like, I wish they would just let me in on a personal level. We could work with business later. That could be, but just you know, let me in on a personal level first. I promise, like, there will be something there to
you know, the concept of low wall, high wall. So like in America, for example, you have low wall, high wall. So originally people are super easygoing, casual. You know, you can call it person friend pretty easily. but then it's like when you try to talk about something more meaningful, then there is a high wall after that initial nice introduction. Other cultures, like for example, like Slavic cultures, like in Ukraine, is a high wall, then low wall. So for example, like I
never heard of this before.
So like I come from the Protestant background in Ukraine, which is a minority. So usually, like Protestants would try to engage people in the conversation and things like that. So like I would like try to engage people in the conversation on the train. And people like would look weird. It's like, what do you want from me? And especially if you talk of the Soviet past and people didn't want to disclose their true thoughts to strangers. So they basically like, get lost, what do you want from me? So you have like high wall at first, very somber face. But then if you get to know them a little better, then it becomes a low wall. You can have like a friend for life. So you know that like high wall, low wall concept.
Yeah.
So if we think,
That's fascinating.
if we talk about group rituals, so the way people do things together, and so in one culture, like for example, in most cultures, when you nod your head, it's yes. But in Bulgarian, it's actually the other way around. You know, it's actually no, this is yes. So.
Wow. So, that's amazing.
So when you talk about group rituals, there can be artificial group rituals imposed by somebody, and people kind of embrace it, but it's fake. Or there are organic group rituals where people really get to enjoy that group flow they have together. So when we talk about group rituals like that in the business world, and you're working with multiple nationalities in New York, having one of the highest percentage of foreign-born people, 38.5% foreign-born, how do you think your cultural and social versatility help you connect with all these people, being cognizant of various social rituals depending on the culture?
So I think when I engage with anybody foreign, I am just very drawn to culture and learning about new culture. It's just a huge curiosity that I have. So anytime I get a referral and the owner is from another country, it's like, a jackpot for me. I'm so excited to engage with them. And so I think that just like my excitement and my enthusiasm to even just have a conversation with them carries through. And it's just like, I am so like focused. What do you need? How can I help you? Can you tell me a bit about your country, your culture? Like, I really care about them. And I think, it could be, I would imagine, daunting to start a new business in a culture, a foreign culture, a different business, especially the U.S. We conduct business and our regulations are very, very different from much of the rest of the world.
Yeah, just social fabric, group rituals.
Yeah, it's like, it's different. It's just very different. Yeah. So I think going back to my foundation for everything is like that personal connection amongst like everything else. It shines through, I believe, with these people where they feel it's like, okay, I'm genuinely going to do what's best for them. Right. And give them really sound advice, really transparent advice. And I'll tell them, like, if there's something out there that, they don't need, or maybe they heard that they need or something, or they're nervous about something, and I'll tell them, like, you don't need that, actually. Like, don't worry about that thing.
I mean, psychological safety is so huge, be it, like, in personal relationships, business relationships. It's just, like, identifying those points where somebody is psychologically unsafe and figuring out, can I help this person feel safer? Help this person understand. I'm not gonna judge. I'm gonna accept the person as is.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of something. Sometimes I ask people, like, okay, what do you want people to feel when you're around them? And my friend returned the question to me, and the word that came to mind was, for me, I want people to feel safe when they're around me. Like, safe to, like, have, like, fear of nothing.
To be themselves.
To be themselves. The worries just leave the mind.
Right.
Like, so yeah.
Yeah, and you said you said something like cool last time we met. You mentioned that there is like one artist, and he's like all he cares about is profit. It's not to say that I mean businesses must be profitable. That's why there are non-profit businesses if they want to be charitable. So it's not like about not wanting profit, but your point was that person was so obsessed with the profit. We go with the goal setting. It's not bad to plan and set goals for profit, but so obsessed with that profit, or like addicted, if you will, that it showed in his paintings. So it's like it shows in intangibly in how you make other people feel. It shows tangibly in the pieces of art here.
Yeah, I mean that's there we can't see it per se, but energy is everywhere, and that story comes from the book Juan Falim, which is the main text of Falun Dafa, and I'll just explain it. It's an ancient Chinese mind-body practice that really helps an individual assimilate to the three principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. And the book has many anecdotes of that nature that really open your mind to things. And that excerpt was from that book. And just, my understanding is our state of mind has impacts. The thoughts that we have in our minds has an impact on our environment. I believe that. I have that understanding.
It's like 80 to 90% of people are stuck between anger and fear. They have not moved to gratitude, to inspiration.
Exactly.
It's just two basic emotions. And what you said about this group, it's could you say correct pronunciation of the group?
Falun Dafa.
Falun Dafa. It's a severely persecuted group in China.
Yeah.
Their organs are being harvested. They're being imprisoned for their dissident position in the society. So we talk about business ownership. In a way, it's being dissident in the society, because usually you may say like, oh, I want to start the business. I have XYZ idea. A lot of people say, oh, nonsense. That's not gonna work. So usually, unless you really achieve a certain level in business, a lot of people wouldn't really encourage you, but just the opposite. Would say, why are you leaving safe job? What's wrong with you? So we say statistically, you talk about 5%, 5 to 10%, depending on the society, being business owners. My question is, when you talk about Falun Dafa and groups that come from very adverse circumstances, it can be a war or very adverse childhood experiences. So eventually, it informs resilience, and it can make or break somebody. So when we talk about coming from adverse circumstances and experiences, how do you think that's connected to innovation and business ownership, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when I think about what I think to be the most admirable characteristic that a person could have, I think about someone who is faced with adversity, either just extreme adversity or just consistent adversity and challenges in their lives, and they're able to maintain their kindness and their positivity, and they're still able to think of others and help others and use those challenges and that adversity to make them a better person and improve their character. Those are the people that I admire the most. And I think that there's so much that, like, because when I go through challenges, and I haven't been faced with extreme adversity. Fortunately, I lived a very, pleasant life.
Yeah, but each person contends with a certain measure of adversity.
Yes, of course. Always facing challenges. Even like the little trials that you face.
That's
today I got on the wrong subway because I wasn't paying attention, and I delayed my arrival to my meeting by 20 minutes and stuff. So in those moments, it's like, okay, am I frustrated? Why am I frustrated? What's the problem here? What in my mind is out of balance? And I think,
So see balance. You like accountant. You speak. You can tell you've been hanging out with accountants for too long.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I really like the word balance and harmony. Harmony is my favorite word, but balance is up there.
Debits and credits, right?
Yes, exactly. But speaking about the practitioners of Falun Dafa, I mean, the adversity is like. Is almost in a certain angle, in my own thoughts, a way for them to further get closer to the principles of forbearance, of tolerance, of compassion, of truthfulness, because in my mind, in order to be a compassionate person, in order to be a tolerant person, it's not just to those who are nice to you. It's not just to those who treat you well, who give you an easygoing time, but it's to everybody, including those who do not treat you well, who look down upon you, who may hurt you physically, mentally, anything. Can you really stay true to those principles of compassion, forbearance, and truthfulness? And I think it's absolutely unbelievable that the practitioners in China, Falun Dafa, that are under that duress, under that suppression, and that such hatred coming from the Chinese government, that they're still able to hold true to those three principles. And it just, it's amazing and very inspiring, when I think about my own challenges. But for me, I see challenges as a way, as a stepping stone to just improve yourself. And, as you're going through a challenge, a tribulation, it's not an easy thing. Like, all your emotions, all the worries, everything's pulling you in a million directions.
All out of whack.
Yeah. But actually, as painful as some challenges may be, you definitely come out the other end a better person.
Yeah, you really remind me of Viktor Frankl, who survived concentration camps. And he said, like, I had a choice. Am I going to be defeated by the conditions in this camp? Or am I going to be the light for these people and be of solace and comfort to these people here, make a difference within the sphere of influence that I have? Because we can have a sphere of concern and sphere of influence. So he wanted to focus on his direct sphere of influence as being a good example to his other body in the camp, and that's how he found his meaning in life and wrote the book Search Man's Quest for Meaning. That we aspire for meaning in life, and often we don't necessarily find that meaning unless we go through super adverse circumstances and hardship. I know cases in Ukraine, like some people I had certain addiction, like alcohol, for example, and kind of not now seeing their purpose and their influence in the society. And then some of them got recruited into the military, and they gained this sense of purpose that they are really doing something good for the society, and that addiction fell away to the background as long as a person connected to that ultimate to that sense of purpose.
Totally. Yeah, I definitely get that. Like, I feel like when you find like a higher meaning, the things below it are just not as important to you anymore, including addictions to things. Like, when you tap into something that's way more important than that addiction, I feel like it just gives you the strength, like the genuine strength from within. Because, if somebody tells you that something's not good for you, but on the inside you don't agree with that, or you don't have the desire to overcome that thing, it has to come within. And when you connect with that thing that gives you that strength from within, that's higher, it's more important than those addictions or whatever it may be, it kind of just like falls off.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about focus a while back. So when we talk about focus and the flow, there are so many distractions nowadays, and especially working in the professional setting, we need to figure out the optimal ways to get into the flow. Because once we really get into the flow, be it in sports or dancing or professional endeavor, we can accomplish so much. But because our focus is being interrupted so frequently, we accomplish so much less than we could be accomplishing.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as developing focus and persistence and determination as the main factors for success, what are your tips as far as developing focus in the flow? Because I feel from what I observed in you, you're really good about combining multiple spheres of activity and interests, and yet you're being very productive professionally. So could you share some tips how you make it happen?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that compliment. Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is I genuinely love what I do for work. I seriously mean it when there does not come a day where I say, I just don't feel like working today. Like, because I really enjoy it. It's really, like, I'm so fortunate. And ADP as a company is unbelievable. Like, such a good company to work for. They genuinely care about the employees. They give you all the resources you need to succeed. So that's one aspect of it.
See, and I just looked up like the share price. So ADP, I think it was like $235 per share the other day. Paychecks is $106, and it gets me to wonder. Okay, what does it say about corporate culture? What does it say about customer service? Because the price is the indicator of value. So to me, it was an interesting observation there.
Yeah.
So
That's
how the financial fundamentals back what you were saying about ADP having great culture.
It's really wonderful place to work. So that's one aspect of it. I guess it's the biggest aspect, and also because like my job, the autonomy and the space for me to do it the way, going back to my point of know your strengths and do that. Just do that. I mean, that's my philosophy. You don't have to follow that.
Like in Gallup, the founder of Gallup poll, that's his entire teaching. He's like, look guys, find your strength and really work from the position of your strength. Know your 5 top strengths.
Yeah.
And there is a great test. I took the test a while back, and it really helped me to know myself better and see, oh yeah, I can totally see how these are my top strengths. So, and then he says, yeah, you can mitigate weaknesses, but like focus on maximizing your strength.
That's how I feel, at least in a professional setting. And so when you're doing what you feel, is a strength of yours every day, then it's like, isn't it enjoyable? It's enjoyable to do things that you're good at, right?
Yeah.
So I think, but I also, on the other part of it, I always feel that it's really important to be a well-rounded person and like a well-cultured person, because I feel that the more well-rounded you are, the higher your ability is to connect with all different types of people. Because like there's a part of me that some people I connect with don't care about, but I have a part of me about something that they care about. So I'm always looking for parts of me that that person I'm talking to cares about, and we'll just do that.
I can give you an example of that. I know very little about American football, but I know a few things. So I can like follow the conversation, okay?
Yeah.
But the way my way to contribute to the dialogue is synthesis. I like synthesizing different ideas. So I would say, how do you think this kind of play that you're describing, how do you think it will be useful in your personal life?
Right.
How do you think it will be useful in business? So that's the tangents in the conversation I take, even without me caring about watching sports, but I can see a value in distilling certain principles from that.
Same with me. Totally the same. Yeah, it's like, you could, whatever that other person may be giving you, you could take pieces of it and like contribute to the conversation in a way that's staying on that topic that they care about, but you're leading the conversation to become more profound, more in-depth, like making it more substantial.
Search for meaning, right?
Yeah.
So like I noticed that that you do Taekwondo, right?
Yes, I did. I'm not actively practicing it, but I do have my black belt in Taekwondo.
Yeah, so the question is like I was reading about like one of the guys from AICPA, and he was there was entire article in the Journal of Accountancy, and he talks how pursuing martial arts really helps him with focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, the discipline that you get from martial arts is really incredible. The way I got into Taekwondo actually was my brother started because I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but I know my parents wanted to enroll him in these classes for some reason. I don't know if it had to do with video games or it had to do with his focus or his behavior at school. I can't remember which, but there was a reason for them enrolling him in specifically martial arts, not other sports, but I think it was rooted in they wanted to instill some discipline. And so that was like the foundation of that. And then my family would go and watch his competitions, his tests for the higher belts, and we kind of all collectively were like, yeah, let's all try this as a family. So we did, and it was the 5 of us for a while, and then actually the only ones who made it through to the end were me and my father. And I was really, really, really into it at that time. I mean, I was training like every day, and like I put my heart and soul and everything into Taekwondo at that point in my life. It was my high school years. And it was just like, you know, because I played sports all my life, but by this time in my life in high school, I lost interest for sports. But I was very into Taekwondo, and I haven't really reflected on why that may be, but like there's 2 sides of Taekwondo. There's the form, and then there's the sparring. I really liked the sparring when I was younger. Now, if I were to practice, I would probably appreciate more of the form.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I can't describe it really, but it was a great way to spend my high school years, I think. Like, it really, I got a lot from it. Also just the challenge and pushing yourself to the next level, and having this community of people who are like all equally into it as you are, and everybody wants to progress and get better, but everyone at the same time is really supportive, and just a really great community there of all different ages, all different types of people, but we're all there for like a similar reason and to share this experience. It was really cool. But it's, mentally, it's just the discipline.
It's a mental resilience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, so you mentioned something very interesting from the group ritual perspective. So you said, there seemed to be some external reason that they wanted, parents wanted to suggest Taekwondo to your brother. But then what's interesting that you said, we eventually all got into it. So to me, it's an example, a great example of the organic group ritual. Because if somebody just tells you, oh, you must do this, we have this birthday party at work and we always have this cake, a lot of people may not care about that, especially if it's bad environment and people like staring at the floor. It looks more like the funeral than a birthday, so kind of artificial group ritual. But you see, what you describe is a beautiful example of organic ritual.
Yes.
And then we get into unintended consequences because it was meant for your brother. But as we expand our options in life, and as we are being open and curious, sometimes something that we think wasn't intended for us, it was intended for your brother. But with that mind of curiosity and openness, you say, why don't I try it? And so many people say, why should I? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? Like very defensive, like protective attitude of the world. But some people like what do I have to lose? Perhaps I can learn something useful. So how I can see how that openness and curiosity really helps you engage with life and enjoy life on a totally different level.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, it's I mean, this, going with the course of nature and just, it's amazing. Like, that's another thing that Falun Dafa has really helped me achieve, and it's always a work in progress, but assimilating to the principle of going with the course of nature and just letting things play out. And if you could really relinquish that like need to control everything,
Yeah.
life becomes so much easier, so much more enjoyable, and you come across things that you couldn't even imagine of planning in your own mind, because that's just the course of nature, and that's how things, and I believe the universe is inherently very, very good, and so just let it do its thing, and kind of just relinquish that control, and things that you did not intend for just happen, but it ends up being a really beautiful thing. And
yeah, even like from a biblical perspective, we created in Imago Dei, or God's image, but that image got tarnished by sin and so on. But if you talk about that intrinsic divine elements, and like going back to the to going with the flow of nature. So Heraclitus said like everything flows, everything changes. So here's the same word flow that we use for focus and concentration nowadays. But then we take the word currency. We like to say money, but okay, why not currency? We can say currency is a synonym. It comes from the word current. So it's like money is meant to be moved, is to be invested, leveraged. But if it's just sitting there, it eventually gets depleted, because it's not meant to be just sitting there. It's meant to be profitably invested.
Right.
So we're going back like everything flows, everything changes. This every minute we have changes in our body, in our cellular, on the tissue level. And then it's like when we say we don't apply it, it's like in the money realm, then it leads to the wrong consequences. That somebody was trying, going to your point of control and really like super control, being super attached. Now I'm just gonna hold it in this the counter here, and ultimately I was trying to hold it so hard, and ultimately I lost it. But if I go with the flow of the universe and say it's meant to be moved, let's leverage this opportunity, that opportunity, move it around, then I'm in sync with the laws of the universe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it takes, like, for me in my own experience, it's taken so much like weight off of my shoulders, because it's just letting things unfold, and maybe something that may appear to be bad on the surface at first glance may end up being something that's a good thing, and not jumping to conclusions and starting to automatically worry about things. And it just, for me, the more I assimilate to this, the more peaceful and the more tranquility that I have.
Yeah.
Makes life better.
Yeah, and then from the standpoint, of finding that harmony and balance. When do you feel like, under what circumstances and under what conditions do you feel most harmony and balance? And the reason I pose the question, I read a book a while back, and it's called Peaks and Valleys, and it's by M.D. Spencer, and he basically says we can learn from our valleys, we can learn from our peaks, and the more we learn into our valleys, the longer our peaks will be, because we won't be as arrogant on our peaks, and we won't be as dramatizing the valleys as much. We just, as cardiogram, it's ups and downs. The only way it's a straight line, it's person is gone. But as long life is like this, like a cardiogram, like peak valley. So at the end of the book, he says, he recommends asking, what brings me, whatever I'm trying to accomplish, does it bring me joy? If it doesn't, what should I change? So like, I wanted to ask you, under what circumstances do you personally feel most balance and most harmony?
It's a great question that I think about for myself, and I want to know for other people too. For me, I feel most at peace, most in harmony, most clear and tranquil when I'm free of worries, when my mind's not fixated on something that I'm worrying about. And then when I'm free of worries, the clarity in my mind skyrockets. And when I have mental clarity, So I'm trying to practice like really thinking of others first, right? Thinking of others first. At every moment, think of the other person first.
Yeah, like, and I just want to interject quickly and say it really shows, because like your care for people and your interests really shows.
Thank you.
And you know, it goes back to that cliche, but very true cliche. They don't care how much you know before they know how much you care. And you see, it's like when you sense it on the visceral level, the person cares about you, then you can give feedback, and even in constructive feedback. Because you know the person is not just telling you that to feel superior or for the ego boost, but say, hey, I care about you, I want to help you. And the perception is gonna be totally different.
Yeah.
There are big chances I'm actually gonna take it and apply it. But if you see somebody just saying to look superior or for the ego boost, I'm like, why do you need it? I innately reject it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. Like, what is the source in which the words that you speak, where is it coming from, in what place? Yeah. But like the moments where my mind is so clear because I'm free of worries and I'm really able to genuinely like just really care for the person that is in my company and just like really think of other people first, that's when I feel my most self. Like in those moments, and those moments are precious, like really, really precious. And because
if you talk about the relational flow, I think the only way it can happen when both people like are super engaged. So like in Cebuano, I work with some Filipino people, and they told me that in Cebuano, which is a dialect of one of the Filipino languages, to play is dua. And it sounds like two, you know, in Ukrainian, dva means two, and I told my assistant, it sounds like two. It makes sense because if you play, it takes two people. Two kids are playing, or two kids on the seesaw, and you know the only way I can see that relational flow happening if each person is fully invested and like really cares and really engaged in that dialogue.
Yeah, definitely. For at least I think of like marriages or partnerships or, you know, whatever, like, yeah, for both people to be willing to compromise, to be considerate of others, and like that's when the cooperation amongst the two people is like, you know, definitely important.
Yeah, as far like you were a part of the fraternity at school, like is it Zeta Tau Alpha?
Zeta, yeah, sorority, yep.
Yeah, so like when you talk, like when I talk about my college years, I remember when I was looking for a job, I needed green card sponsorship, so I attended so many interviews, and it was like, yeah, like you're a great candidate, but you know that green card sponsorship was a big problem. But I knew I needed to find just that one opportunity, that just that one opportunity, that initial entry point. And I feel when you talk about learning community at college, and say, you know, you have people in the community in your college, you start at this family level, then college level, and you learn about the community, and then eventually I got hired by some big companies, some smaller companies, and so on, and I felt like I grew complacent in my quest of growing relationships with people because I started super focused on my work, establishing career, and all of that. So the question is like, how do you think these like college experiences, say sorority in this case, really taught you the value of community and that lifelong relationship and community building?
Yeah, so the school I went to, which was Lehigh University, Greek life was extremely prominent on campus. It was a huge part of the college experience at Lehigh. And so when I got into the sorority, you know, that's how I made some of my closest friends that I actually saw. I saw one of my such a good friend that I met in the sorority, but she lives in a different state. I was at a wedding this weekend in Boston for a college friend, and she was there, and it was just like this reconnection, this like unbelievably like happy moment to reconnect with each other. So just like, doing things as a group rather than an individual,
It's going to that dua or dva.
Yeah. And just, the cooperation of a group, and, we did some events and stuff, and just, say if a decision had to be made, maybe discussing it amongst the group rather than just doing your own idea and stuff. And also just, being in a group where, maybe you don't get along with some of the personalities or you don't see eye to eye, and just being able to manage all different types of people, in a group, rather than just sticking to the people that you really have synergy with, but just being exposed to so many different types of personalities, and, learning how to interact with those other perspectives, those other personalities. And because I think, for me, it's so, personally, I want to be able to connect with everybody, and just being able to find parts of me that could mesh well with everyone, no matter who they are.
Because it's going back, to that connection, to the connection with the universe, with the flow of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And if we talk, we're going back in reverse chronological order. So like one of the things that I found like very curious, that you're from Massapequa.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me think, that movie of Kate and Leopold. It's like Kate and Leopold 2001 movie. Where this guy appears from the past, from Liechtenstein, I believe.
My friend just moved there.
Yeah, and he has like this like royal manner, and he totally doesn't fit in the modern New York.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he appeared here because one guy was messing with the time machine, and it worked it out so that he could bring this guy from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment he was brought, he was supposed to marry some like queen of Liechtenstein, and some sort of arranged marriage. So like he finds himself in New York like total oddball, and totally doesn't fit in. And like eventually like he made friends with some guys, like with this guy's sister, and he like finds out that he really likes her. So like but this guy who brought him in the first place needs to figure out the way to get rid of him, because now his personal relationship is suffering, because it's like as if this guy is taking his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like the way it's orchestrated at the end, that Kate from Massapequa actually gets, she has to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge, and like when she eventually falls, like in that flight, she gets connected with the universe, if you will, and gets transported into the past, precisely where that wedding in Liechtenstein is happening. So like in Liechtenstein they say like Archduchess of blah blah blah, some place in Liechtenstein. So like he was supposed to announce his marriage to that Archduchess. I forgot what place.
Mm-hmm.
But then he looks at Kate, and then he's like, wow, like that's my dream. My dream came true. So he actually announced like Kate and she said of Massapequa. So that's like
I did not know that movie.
So like so that's fit nicely of Archduchess of.
What's the name of the movie? Do you remember?
It's called Kate and Leopold.
That's the name of the movie.
Kate and Leopold is
I thought those were the names of the actors. Okay.
2001 movie. So that's why when I look at Massapequa, it automatically made me thought of Kate and Leopold.
I'll have to look that up. I've never heard of that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything you want to leave our viewers with about like anything you want to say or leave our viewers
Just like truly, I'm just always remembering the importance of kindness and being a good person and doing the right thing. And because when you really are successful in life is when you have a good character. Despite your circumstances, despite whether you have a good job or financials or whatever it is, what truly is important is the character that you have inside of you. And just living your life with good principles, treating everyone well. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. We can't control it. The only thing we can control is ourselves and our character and the way we treat people and just the actions that we carry forth. And it's just so important to be a good person right now.
Yeah, you made me think, I was thinking about water, about the flow of water and so on. So lotus, lotus is such a beautiful white flower, but it grows in marsh. And, there are these Japanese poems, hokku. They like very short poems. And one of them goes like this: the white blossom lotus doesn't shun the marsh from which it came from. So we have beautiful white flower that grows the origin which is marsh.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's very powerful, that quote.
Yes. So I hope you enjoyed today's segment. Please post your comments, subscribe to the channel if you like it, and post the topic that will be of interest to you, because the idea is to take numbness out of numbers. You see, numbers simply signify something. They a signal of some intrinsic underlying things. So it's ultimately we talk about life, and the point is come alive. We talk about the B-dance and ecosystem, how small things make a big difference. So post what subjects and topics you like for the next time. Otherwise, cool bees.
Bye bye. Adios.